Welcome to another edition of What Saith The Scripture television program. This is Harley Howard again. A blessing to be with you this afternoon as we continue verse by verse in our study of God's Word. We are in a transition in Isaiah 39. Actually, we finished Isaiah 39, and I was trying to get out of Isaiah 39, but I got stuck there because there was so much that is tied into the rule of Josiah. I just had to stop and go back and look at 2 Kings chapters 21 through 24. And in doing that, I actually was, well, by the text itself, led to go to 2 Chronicles 35. I think that's where we're at this evening. So we're going to finish that, then go back to 2 Kings chapter 24, and then we'll be done with that. Unless I start meddling again into more text, Lord willing, next Sunday evening, we should begin Isaiah chapter 40. So that's the up-to-the-minute plan so far. Do you have a plan, Harley? Yeah, I plan to keep going through the Bible. What I do want to do is jump back to 2 Kings 23 for a moment, look at verses 21 through 23, then get back into 2 Chronicles and kind of elaborate on the fact that Josiah actually reinstituted the Passover feast, which had not happened in a long time in Israel's history at the time of Hezekiah, Manasseh, and Josiah. Verse 21 of 2 Kings 23. And the king commanded all the people, saying, Keep the Passover unto the Lord your God, as it is written in the book of this covenant. Surely there was not holden such a Passover from the days of the judges that judge Israel. That's a frightening statement. Nor in all the days of the kings of Israel, nor of the kings of Judah. So they just didn't do it. They had no feast days, plenty of idolatry, but no remembrance of God. All the feast and festival days had significance in people remembering God's deliverance and that God was to rule the people. So it wasn't just let's get together and do whatever. There was always the divine purpose in the gathering of Israel and Judah to remember these feast days, holy days, new moons, Sabbath days, etc. And they just abandoned it, all of it. And when God established these days, he made sure to command the people to do this every year and to never forget it, to teach it to your children and your children's children. Did they do it? For a little time, then they just stopped doing it altogether. But in the 18th year of King Josiah, wherein this Passover was holden to the Lord in Jerusalem. Now let's go back, go to 2 Chronicles chapter 35. I'm going to read verses 1, 2, and 3. We talked about this last time, so I'm not going to do any review except to say that if you want to know what I spoke about last time, just go back to last week's sermon here on YouTube, which of course reminds me that if this work is a blessing to you, please like, subscribe, share. What is it? Like? Yeah, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I didn't have the thing up. I thought I put up there. So like, comment, share, and subscribe. The most important, of course, is subscribe. Hit the bell icon. Go all the way up to the bell icon. Click all. Everything we broadcast, you'll be notified. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to do that. Moreover, Josiah kept a Passover unto the Lord in Jerusalem, and they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. And he set the priests in their charges and encouraged them to the service of the house of the Lord. Again, last week I said these priests were worthless. In fact, not only did they not do the service of the Lord, they were doing idolatry. So this whole part of the reform, you had to reform everybody. All the so-called spiritual leadership was corrupt. Idolatry was all over the place. I'm telling you, that sermon I preached 3 weeks ago, you need to really listen to it, because people don't understand why God judged Israel so severely in Judah. Well, that should tell you. They were infested with idolatry. Verse 3, and said unto the Levites that taught all Israel, that's part of their function, which were holy unto the Lord, put the holy ark in the house which Solomon the son of David, king of Israel, did build. It shall not be a burden upon your shoulders, and serve ye, serve now the Lord your God, his people Israel. Their function was to do whatever was necessary in the temple. Their part of the temple, of course, was to maintain the ark, the curtains, everything in the ark was supposed to be redone again, and that was their service to the people when they came and offered sacrifice, etc. That was important. Verse 4, prepare yourselves by the houses of your fathers after your courses, according to the writing of David, king of Israel, and according to the writing of Solomon his son. Stand in the holy place according to the divisions of families of the fathers of your brethren, the people, and after the division of the families of the Levites. So kill the Passover and sanctify yourselves and prepare your brethren that they may do according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses. So when the Levites were going to prepare themselves to take the Passover, there was specific things that God had commanded them in terms of spiritual readiness and personal cleanliness. They had to separate themselves. They had to prepare themselves to be ready to serve the Lord. And they were commanded to do it because they weren't doing it. And they were commanded to do exactly the instructions of what God commanded them to do to be ready for the service of the Passover. So they were to sanctify themselves, which is, there's an extensive, and you should go back. I'm not going to do it. You should go back into the Old Testament and look at the extensive nature of preparation for the Levites to prepare themselves to be ready for the Passover. And that consisted of offering sacrifices to the Lord as a part of their own personal cleansing. So they had to sacrifice or give sacrifice themselves to the Lord. Verse 7, and Josiah gave to the people of the flocks, lambs and kids, all for the Passover offerings, for all that were present, to the number of 30,300 bullocks. These were of the king's substance. Technically, the people were to have these animals already prepared to bring to the temple for the Passover. They didn't have any. So Josiah gave them all of what was necessary for them to offer to the Lord during Passover. That's tremendous on his part. Verse 8, and his princes gave willingly unto the people, to the priests, and to the Levites, Hezekiah and Zechariah and Jehiel, rulers of the house of God, gave unto the priests for the Passover offerings 2,600 small cattle, 300 oxen. So this was a huge undertaking. We have a tendency to read through a text and go, oh, it probably took about an hour. This took weeks. This was a huge thing they had to do. It was no preparation. They had done it in years. So it wasn't like they remembered it. They didn't do it at all. So unless they had the book of the law, which directed them to do it, they wouldn't have done it at all, because they haven't done it at all. They weren't following the Lord. Huge amounts of offerings, huge amounts of sacrifice. Ananiah, verse 9, and Shemaiah and Nethaneel, his brethren, and Hashab, my tongue got tied, Hashbiah and Jael and Jozabad, chief of the Levites, gave unto the Levites for the Passover offering 5,000 small cattle and 500 oxen. Again, these were things that were supposed to be prepared already, but they didn't have it. So Josiah just graciously gave everybody everything they needed, didn't have any excuse. So the service was prepared, and the priests stood in their place, and the Levites in their courses, according to the king's commandment. And they killed the Passover, and the priests sprinkled the blood from their hands, and the Levites flayed them. And they removed the burnt offerings, that they might give according to the divisions of the families of the people to offer unto the Lord, as it is written in the book of Moses. And so did they with the oxen. This is wonderful. Wonderful. And they roasted the Passover with fire according to the ordinance. But the other holy offering sod they in pots and in cauldrons and in pans, and divided them speedily among all the people. And afterward they made ready for themselves and for the priests, because the priests, the sons of Aaron, were busied in offering of burnt offerings and the fat until night. Therefore the Levites prepared for themselves and for the priests and the sons of Aaron. This was just ongoing, nonstop, just huge. I mean, you can't even begin to imagine thousands and thousands of animals and offerings for sacrifice. And each of them had to be offered singularly at a time. And it had to be a different procedure for all of them. And the blood had to be moving here, and the innards had to be moved here, and, they had to be skinned and cooked a certain way. So this wasn't no easy, let's just read through the passage, and that's how long it took. No, this was elaborate. This was huge. And again, seeing they haven't done it in a long time, this had to be something. Verse 15, and the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their place according to the commandment of David, and Asaph, and Heman, and Jeduthun, the king's seer, and the porters waited at every gate, that they might not depart from their service, for their brethren the Levites prepared for them. I don't know what the singers sang. It doesn't say what they sang. People kind of take that passage and lose their minds. It doesn't say it. In fact, if they want to go back there and they want to really be a stickler about singers, the sons of Asaph were Levites, and they were men. So if you want to be a stickler about the singers in the Old Testament, well, they were Levites, and they were men. You see, well, is there a New Testament equivalent? No. No. I mean, all I could tell you was whatever they were singing, it was absolutely contextually something to do with the Passover. It wasn't like someone just decided to, drop beats or do something like that. Everything is clear right here. But it didn't tell you the title of any songs or what they sang. They sang unto the Lord. That much is certain. Like I said, they would not drop no beats and act a fool. All right. So all the service of the Lord, verse 16, was prepared the same day to keep the Passover and to offer burnt offerings upon the altar of the Lord, according to the commandment of King Josiah. And the children of Israel that were present kept the Passover at that time and the feast of unleavened bread 7 days. There was no Passover like to it, no Passover like to that kept in Israel from the days of Samuel the prophet. Neither did all the kings of Israel keep such a Passover as Josiah kept, and the priests and the Levites and all Judah and Israel that were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. That is horrible. In the 18th year of the reign of Josiah was the Passover kept, which is that verse 19 is the verse we read initially in 2 Kings chapter 23. So this is what happened the 18th year of Josiah when he kept the Passover. So the entire Passover, of course, was a tremendous feast for the nation of Israel and Judah. And it says that they had no such feast like this since the days of Samuel the prophet, which shows just how far the nation had departed from the commandments of the Lord and the Lord himself. Again, I said this many years ago. You see Israel getting its captivity, getting delivered, remnant getting delivered. They go back, worship the Lord, repeat, wash, repeat, rinse. Same stupid behavior. But each time you see them go through this cycle of rebellion, rescue, restoration, rebellion. Each time the idolatry grows deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And the remnant takes longer and longer and longer to go through the process of repenting. It just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And in the process, all the remembrance of the Lord, feast days, festival days, holy days, new moons, Sabbaths, were all ignored. So people have a tendency to read through the Bible and they start not thinking. They go, why is God judging Israel? Aren't they walking with him? But then you read this, you go, no, they're not. In fact, not only are they not walking with him, but they have allowed idolatry to seep into the land of such nature that it overcame the land and it was normal. So even when you have people doing reforms and they were trying to get rid of it, like Hezekiah, only Josiah did a deep dive. And even when Hezekiah was doing it, it just wasn't enough. I mean, for him to do the reforms and then his son took over and just went crazy with evil. It was everywhere. Josiah comes along. We got to get rid of all this stuff, all stuff that's visible, stuff attached to the house of God, stuff attached to the Levites, all the groves that were everywhere, and all the hidden people trying to hide their stuff, household gods, all kinds of immorality. It was crazy. It was wicked. So each generation that forsook the Lord adapted more and more and more idolatry. And so even when they were restored, it didn't matter because the idolatry was so deep that God had to judge it, which is exactly what he was going to do after Josiah died. And what happens after Josiah died? They put in another fool that started to do evil. God said, that's it. That is it. Amazing. Now, this would be their last great feast of Passover before their captivity. It was really the only high point for the nation of Israel and Judah. And if the book ended there, well, it would be a rich blessing, but it didn't because Josiah did a very foolish thing. As we'll see the remainder of the chapter, but I want you to go back to 2 Kings 23. We got to put it together. All right, so let's see here. 2 Kings 23, look at verse, where you at, Harley? Verse 24, moreover, the workers with familiar spirits, let's just read it. And the images and the idols of all the abominations that were spied in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem did Josiah put away, that he might perform the works of the law, which were written in the book that Hezekiah the priest found in the house of the Lord. And like unto him, there was no king before him that turned to the Lord with all his heart, with all his soul, with all his might, according to the law of Moses, neither after him rose there any like him. All right. Notwithstanding, there's always a but. The Lord turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations that Manasseh had provoked him withal. So every single thing Manasseh did, he did intentionally to provoke God. When people willingly sin, they do it against God. There is no sinning that does not go against God. And the Lord said, verse 27, I will remove Judah also out of my sight, as I have removed Israel, and I will cast off this city, Jerusalem, which I have chosen, and the house of which I said my name shall be there. So the acts of Manasseh is evil, nor the goodness of the acts of Josiah did not stop the promise of God to wipe Judah out and Jerusalem. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In his days, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to river Euphrates, and King Josiah went against him. And he slew him at Megiddo when he had seen him. And his servants carried him in a chariot dead from Megiddo, brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own sepulchre. And the people of the land took Jehoiahaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him and made him king in his father's stead. Now, with that in mind, let's go back and look at the specifics of Josiah's foolish act in military combat, back to 2 Chronicles 35. All right, look at verse 20. After all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carchemish by Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. But he sent ambassadors to him, saying, What have I to do with you, thou king of Judah? I come not against thee this day, but against the house wherein I have war. For God commanded me to make haste, forbear thee from meddling with God, who is with me, that he destroy thee not. Now, this is very interesting, at least it was to me, because you have Pharaoh Necho, sent by God to fight in a battle against a land that made war with them. It had nothing to do with Josiah. Josiah, for some reason, not explained. It doesn't explain it. I know speculation. I've read some. I'm not going to get involved in it, but it just says that he came out against him. And so Necho said, wait, what are you doing? This is a matter between God and the army that I'm fighting against. It has nothing to do with you. Okay, so don't meddle with God's business. This is God's business. It had nothing to do with you. God sent me. Don't do anything stupid. In other words, mind your business. Okay. And he said, because if you do, notice carefully what he said. I want you to go back to verse 21. He says, Forbear thee not from meddling with God, who is with me, that he destroy you not. Okay. If I'm doing what God says, you get in the way, you're going to die. Got nothing to do with you. So don't meddle. There was no reason for Josiah to get involved in the conflict with the king of Egypt. Nor was there any reason why Josiah should meddle in God's business. Which I've said many times, there's always a danger in getting in God's way. Stay out of God's business. If it doesn't apply to you, stay away. There are things, just either watch from afar or just get out of the way. I mean, that's a lesson I learned. I mean, I look at that and go, man, he should have stayed out of God's business. Had nothing to do with him. Wouldn't matter. It didn't matter why. It didn't say why. It just said he did it. It cost him his life. Verse 22. Nevertheless, Josiah would not turn his face from him. In other words, he wouldn't listen. And so he disguised himself. Okay. So that he might fight with him. And hearken not unto the words of Necho from the mouth of God. So now you know God was truly behind this. It wasn't Necho just saying, hey, I'm going to talk about what the Lord said. No, Necho was sent by God. That's what it says. And hearken not unto the words of Necho from the mouth of God. This was God telling Josiah, leave it alone. It has nothing to do with you. And came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. It's fair to say that the Lord told Josiah through the Egyptian king not to get involved in a matter which was from God and didn't apply to you at all. You have nothing to do with this, so don't get involved. but he was determined to get in the way of God, and because of that, he was killed. Now, I don't know why. I think throughout the years, I'm learning, not learn, but learning. Someone would say, I just don't understand why God's doing this. Neither am I. Don't you have a word? No. I thought you were. I am. What is the Lord telling you to do in all this? What is he showing you? He didn't show me anything, and I'm not getting in the way. There are a lot of things that are happening around me that I don't talk to anyone about. And it's like, I ain't getting involved in that. It doesn't have anything to do with me. If I get in the way, I'm the one's going to get hurt, along with everybody else. So it's like, nope. I think I'm more sensitive now to the consequence of stuff. Like, no. If God is dealing with you in a specific thing, you handle it. Sometimes calling for people to do X, Y, and Z. No, I don't think so. Pray for me. This situation come up. Why'd it come up? What did you do where it came up? How did it come up? Talk to me. Well, I don't think I have to discuss with you. I just want you to pray. It ain't what you want. What God wants. Clearly, if you're not willing to discuss why that circumstance happened, you hiding something. And what I'm going to pray for, you may not like. What's that? I'm going to pray that God finishes what he started. Because clearly he done started something and you ain't paying attention. Click up. Okay, well, there you go. We read this stuff and I'm hoping we go, you know what? Some things I'm not getting in the way. We need to let God do what his will is in the matter of other people's lives. Stay out of the way, lest we be dealt with. It does not apply to me. No. People ask us for prayer, oftentimes for things that they do that are wrong, that set in motion the very thing they're going through. And they want to and ask you to pray when you shouldn't be praying. And if you're going to pray, pray that God would complete what he started in their chastening or whatever. I'm going about your business. Verse 23, and the archer shot at King Josiah, and the king said to his servants, have me away. In other words, get me out of here, for I'm sore wounded, I'm dying. Another way of saying I'm dying. His servants therefore took him out of that chariot and put him in the second chariot that he had, and they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died, and was buried in one of the sepulchres of his fathers, and all Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah. Yeah, they mourned for him because they knew it was coming. I bet you that was in the back of their mind. Okay? And Jeremiah lamented for Josiah, and all the singing men and the singing women, it mentions women too, yeah, but not in the temple, spake of Josiah in their lamentation to this day, and made them an ordinance in Israel, and behold, they are written in the Lamentations. So I guess you got to go get the book of Lamentations now. I'm going to leave that to you guys to do that, okay? Follow up with Lamentations, or we never going to get back to Isaiah. I'm not complaining, Lord. This is good, though. That it just shows you how everything connects together. Your assignment is to go to the book of Lamentations and read that and connect them dots. Excuse me, connect the dots. Right? There you go. Okay, good. Now, the rest of the acts of Josiah and his goodness, according to that which is written in the law of the Lord, and his deeds, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah, which we saw. So again, Chronicles and Kings, and I guess now Lamentations, you have to kind of put them all together, and you get to see this man. And he was so great that There was much weeping, praise given to him in his death, but it was time for judgment to come. And Jeremiah's presence should alert us to read his writings in conjunction with this book. So I would say your assignment is also to read the entire book of Jeremiah, but you probably look at me like I lost my mind. But again, he was contemporary with the time period. Okay. Where his prophecies warned Judah about wrath to come, and they would come. Okay. So that is the end of 2 Chronicles 35. Now let's get back to 2 Kings 24. And we're going to do the first 16 verses, and I think that's it. Then, Lord willing, next time we'll get back into Isaiah chapter 40. The 40th chapter of Isaiah on is is one of my favorite parts of the Bible, and I'll explain that, God willing, when we get there. A lot of it talks about the deity of God and his sovereignty in profound language. In the days of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years, and he turned and rebelled against him. So again, Jehoiakim was Josiah's son, who they made king over Judah. Now, what's very interesting about Jehoiakim, and I'll say this in a way I think we can understand it. Jehoiakim was a vassal to Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, they were in captivity. Fast forward. Now, as long as Jehoiakim did what Nebuchadnezzar told them to do, whether it was taxation, you run the country, but I want you to do it my way. Okay, this is where some of the kings of the nations that brought Israel into captivity said, I don't want to run Jerusalem. I don't want to run the nation. Just go ahead and do what I tell you. You're a vassal to me. If I need an army, if I need whatever, I'll call you. But I want you to run the country. Just do it. But don't give me no back talk. Okay? And you're going to be fine. We'll leave you alone. Okay? All he had to do was do what Nebuchadnezzar told him. He didn't do it. And Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. Stupid. So historically, Nebuchadnezzar defeated Pharaoh Necho, the Battle of Carchemish, 605 BC. And in doing so, Babylon is now, or was now, the strongest nation in the Near East. So Egypt and all of its vassals or servant nations, including Judah, were now under Babylonian control. All he had to do was to be a good vassal, and he could just run Judah any way he wanted. But God said it's judgment time. Verse 2, and the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldees, bands of the Syrians, bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servants, plural, the prophets, plural. Okay, that's very important, because you had Isaiah, Jeremiah, and other contemporaries that were telling Judah, the time is come. Judgment is now. Surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah. Who was responsible for sending the Chaldees, Syrians, Moabites, and Ammonites to deal with Judah? The Lord. The Lord. Surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah, to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did. Well, why would God punish Judah for the sins of Manasseh? uh, because you follow Manasseh and his sins? What a silly question. Just offsetting someone in their mind, thinking, quietly, why did he get, why did Harley say that the Lord, sitting there like on the TV show where they start talking in their head? Why does God judge Judah, for the sins of Manasseh? That doesn't seem straight. That doesn't seem right, does it? Yes, right, because they sin along with Manasseh. Didn't that look good? I wonder why Harley's saying that. The text is saying that God judged them for the sins of Manasseh. Yeah, because they did the sins along with him. Jehoiakim's futile attempt to rebel against Babylon was in truth an attempt to fight against the pronounced judgment God already made on Judah. The more I look at the Bible, the more I realize just how stupid people are. Fighting against God's plan, fighting against God, fighting against the inevitable. What was the purpose in Jehoiakim fighting against Nebuchadnezzar? Listen, that made no sense. So it had to be the what the world was that? Hmm? Oh, okay. I don't like noises. Anyway, it was a futile attempt. It was senseless. The Lord did it. This was all the Lord. We need to see carefully that it was the Lord who sent these heathen nations against Judah to destroy it in fulfillment of his prophetic word through the prophets. So Judah would be judged for her sins and for the sinfulness of Manasseh. Now listen to verse 4. And also for the innocent blood that he shed, he being Manasseh. For he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which the Lord would not pardon. This is very interesting. Not only did God judge Judah for her sinfulness and Manasseh for his, but the blood of the innocent, the blood of babies offered up as human sacrifice to Molech, God wouldn't pardon. There's just some things God cannot and will not overlook, and things in which he must judge. Even in our country, we're going to give an account for all the murders doctors, women, nurses, clinics, councils, hospitals, Congress, legislators, Supreme Court, local governments, and every other person or persons I did not mention. They're all going to give an account for the useless slaughter of the innocent blood of untold millions of aborted babies, which women have murdered in this country. It's ironic. In the conversation I had last night with this wonderful couple in Alabama, and one of the questions or issues that were brought up had to do with alleged genocide. And what about the genocide in our own country? I don't want my tax dollars supporting a country that's involved in genocide. Do you mean America? Crickets. If there is one country, we could talk about Iran and how they massacred thousands of their own people, and that would be true. There's no question about that. But the idea that we see ourselves as the moral leader of right and wrong is an absurdity. It is an absurdity. Do me a favor. I want you to do a search for me the amount of abortions in this country since Roe v. Wade until now. Let me know when you got it. Well, just get it for me and let me know when you have it. So, the idea that we're not going to be held accountable for the the shedding of innocent blood. God did not look favorably upon Israel or anybody else that mistreated their children in that fashion. And there's a reason why I think not only our country is in the way that it is, in so many ways, we have eliminated whole generations of people. And we didn't think about that. We didn't think about the economic, the spiritual, the moral dilemma that this country has put itself in by doing what we do. What do you got? So, since Roe v. Wade, this country alone has killed 62 million babies. And you want us to think that we have the right to question some other nation as if we're some kind of moral example? Get real. Millions. We have eliminated how many people in America? About 350 million people? Yeah, so we've eliminated what, 20%? Close to 20% of the population of our country. They want to act like we're moral people. Get real. You think God's going to overlook that? You think God's not going to hold us accountable for that? You better think again. Say, Pastor Terrence said, absolutely, Pastor. We are leading the pack in wickedness and the shedding of innocent blood. We've done more innocent blood shedding as a nation than all the heathen combined throughout the period of the Old Covenant. And it's nonstop. We're still doing it. Could you? You'd have to. How many? 60 what? About 62 million people that will never help our economy. There is a huge gap between old people and young people. This gap that you cannot convince me that this removal of 62 million people does not have an economic, moral, and effect on our country. It does. Economically, it has an effect on our country. Everything. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how that gap is overlooked, but God's not going to pardon us for that. Anyone think that's why the whole notion of calling this a Christian nation to me is an abomination. There is no proof that we serve God. None at all. None. The only Christians in America, the only thing Christian in America are the remnant of people that are Christians. That's it. Verse 5, now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? Harley, you got to keep going, or you ain't going to never get back to Isaiah. So Jehoiakim slept. Let's just put it this way. What he did was, it's more expands upon what he did with Nebuchadnezzar. That's your next assignment. Read Jehoiakim, what he did. So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiachin, his son, reigned in his stead. And the king of Egypt came not any more out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt. So, Egypt was useless to fight against Babylon, and attempted no more to try to stop him. That was a waste of time. And so now we have Mr. Jehoiachin. Verse 8, and he was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. That's it. 3 months. And his mother's name was Neshuta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. He did that which evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done. So here we go. Back to that again. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city and his servants and did besiege it. Exactly what God said was going to happen. And Jehoiachin, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. So he reigned 3 months, in Jerusalem. then was taken captive along with, all his kin and servants in the 8th year of his reign, of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord. Again, this is exactly what Isaiah told Hezekiah was going to happen when you showed Babylon all your stuff. That there's going to come one day when all stuff's going to be taken away. Here it is. Carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon king of David had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. Oh, okay. Thought he was saying something. And he carried away all Jerusalem, all the princes, all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths, none remained, save the poorest sort of the people of the land. So he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, his officers, and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. Exactly what God said was going to happen. And all the men of might, even 7,000 craftsmen, smiths 1,000, all that were strong, apt for war, even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon. So everyone who was strong enough to battle, all the smiths, in other words, those who build, those who did construction, blacksmiths, everyone was taken into captivity. Only one left in Jerusalem were poor folk that could do nothing. Every single event that we just read, and this really brings everything into full circle with Isaiah. Everything that happened was in complete fulfillment of God's word in 2 Kings 20, verses 12 through 18. We're going to read it, and that's it. We're done. At that time, Berodach-Baladan, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present unto Hezekiah. He had heard that Hezekiah had been sick. Hezekiah hearkened unto them, showed them all the house of his precious things, the silver, the gold, and the spices, and the precious ointment, and all the house of his armor, and all that was found in his treasures. There was nothing in his house, nor in all his dominion, that Hezekiah showed them not. Remember that? Then came Isaiah the prophet unto King Hezekiah, said unto him, What said these men, and from whence came they unto thee? Hezekiah said, They are come from a far country, even from Babylon. He's all puffy and happy and think he's something. And he said, What have they seen in thy house? And Hezekiah answered, All these things that are in my house have they seen. There is nothing among my treasures that I have not showed them. And Isaiah said unto Hezekiah, Hear the word of the Lord. Behold, the days come, that all that is in thine house, and that which thy fathers have laid up in store unto this day, shall be carried away into Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. And of thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. That is exactly what happened. Exactly what we read. And so that, my friends, is the conclusion, with the exception of your assignments. But that's the conclusion of chapter 39 of Isaiah and all the extensions that we've seen over the last 5 weeks, which I am thankful that we got a chance to see all of this, because it's very important and it's crucial in our understanding of the Word of God. So next time, we will get into chapter 40 of Isaiah. Okay, because by looking at Lamentations, it's over. It's a game over. If I look at Lamentations, it's game over. I already know that. If I look at what happened to Josiah, it's game over. I mean, Jehoiachin, Jehoiakim or Chin? Kim. Okay. Kim and Chin. Either one is going to be over. So, Lord willing, next time back to Isaiah 40. And tomorrow, commit 100 back to Proverbs 16. And we might wrap up 16. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow, but next week probably so. In chapter 17. Boy, busy day. All right, folks. God bless. God keep you. Stay focused.